Here we have 5 examples of inequalities that we want to solve. And once we get the solution, we also want to present our answer on a number line by graphing them and also give an interval using interval notation. So let's start off with example 1. It says negative 3/7 x is minus 5 is less than or equal to 2.5. So I'm going to start off by adding 5 on both sides. And if we do that, we get negative 3/7 x is less than or equal to 7.5. And now, in order to get rid of the fraction, we want to multiply both sides by negative 7/3. If we do that, then on the left-hand side, we'll just be left with x. So I also want to multiply the right-hand side by negative 7/3. So negative 7/3 times negative 3/7 is just 1. And so we'll be left with 1x is less than or equal to. And then if you simplify 7.5 times negative 7/3 on your calculator, that leaves us with 17.5. However, recall that because we multiplied both sides by a negative number, we actually have to flip the direction of the inequality symbol. So our final answer in the inequality notation would be x is greater than or equal to, I missed a negative sign, so it should be negative 17.5. And then if we were to graph that, let's say this is negative 18, this is negative 17.5, and this is negative 17, negative 16.5. So it's greater than or equal to, so I would put a closed dot, and then greater than means we want to shade on the right-hand side. And then for interval notation, we would have negative 17.5 with a bracket on it, and then comma infinity with a parenthesis. All right, for example 2, we want to start off by adding 5.5 to both sides. And if we do that, we get 3/4 x is greater than 28. And then from here, we want to multiply both sides by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply this by 4/3 and multiply the right-hand side by 4/3. And if we do that, we get x is greater than, let's see, 28 times 4 is 112. And then our denominator would be 3. If you throw that into your calculator, you will see that that number is equal to 37.3, where the 3 repeats. So I'm just going to leave it as a fraction. So this would be our inequality notation. And then our graph. So let's say this is 37 and this is 38. Then it would be 1/3 of the way between 37 and 38. So I'll put it right here, and I'll put 112 over 3. And because it's greater than, I would want an open circle, and I would shade to the right-hand side. And then lastly, if I was doing my interval notation, oops, it should be a parenthesis, 112 over 3, comma, infinity, and another parenthesis. All right, so for example 3, notice that we have two fractions. However, they both have the same denominator, and so we can actually combine these into -3 plus 10 over 7x plus 1 is greater than or equal to 0. And then if we simplify, -3 plus 10 is 7, so we would get 7 over 7x plus 1 is greater than or equal to 0. And 7 divided by 7 is just x. Excuse me, 7 divided by 7 is 1, so we're just left with x. And then I could subtract 1 on both sides, and we would get x is greater than or equal to -1. So for our inequality, we would have x is greater than or equal to -1. For our graph, here's -2, -1, 0, and greater than or equal to, so we'd want a closed dot, and I'm going to shade to the right. And then last one for this, we want to talk about the interval notation. So we would have a bracket, -1, comma, infinity, and then parentheses. So those are the three representations for that one. Let's look at example 4. So for example 4, the first thing that we want to do is we want to distribute the values here. So I'm going to distribute the 6 and distribute the 9. And if we do that, let's see, 6 times 7 is 42x minus 42 plus 9 is greater than or equal to 9 times 4 is 36x minus 27 and then plus 7x. Okay, so now we want to do some combining of some like terms. So on the left-hand side, we would have 42x minus 33 is greater than or equal to. And here on the right-hand side, we can combine 36x plus 7x, which would give us 43x, and then minus 27. Okay, and then from here, I'm going to subtract 42x on both sides and add 27 on both sides. So if we do that, we get -6 is greater than or equal to x. And I'm just going to flip that around. That is the same thing as saying that x is less than or equal to -6. Generally, when we're writing the inequality like this, usually we'll want to put the variable on the left-hand side. So x is less than or equal to -6 would be our inequality. I've gone ahead and I've put in the graph and the interval notation there as well for you. So now we just have one more example, example 5, to look at. So I'm going to start off by combining the like terms on the left-hand side of the equation, which would be 7.3x minus 2.25x. And that gives us 5.05x plus 14 is less than 8.45x minus 19.5. And now I'm going to subtract 8.45x on both sides and also subtract 14 on both sides. And if we do that, we get -3.4x is less than -33.5. And then I want to divide both sides by -3.4. And remember, if we're dividing both sides by a negative, we must flip the direction of the inequality symbol. And if you throw that fraction into your calculator, you'll see that it's like 9.85. So I'm just going to round it to 9.9. So there is our inequality. And for our graph, here's 9, here's 10. This 9.9 would be about right there. And we'd have an open circle and shade to the right. And then lastly, our interval would be 9.9 comma infinity. And it would look like that with parentheses on both the 9.9 and the infinity symbol.